waiting for luggage to arrive is very much the same on both sides of the Iron Curtain. This particular moment was on the communist side, in the Socialist Republic of Romania. If passports had a section for religious belief, most Western Europeans, I suspect, wouldn't know what to put there. We're moving round. I'd heard, though, that in Romania, over 80% of the population have no doubt that they are Orthodox Christians. For this search, Romania is to stand for Orthodox Christianity. Sorry. Communist Party headquarters, Bucharest. An Orthodox church, one of 10,000 in Romania said to be open and thriving. With a smattering of Latin, you don't have to get lost in these streets, for Romania has always been a Latin peninsula in a sea of Slavs. Yugoslavia to the west, Bulgaria to the south, and to north and east, like a nutcracker, there's Russia. My first impression of an Orthodox church was how dark it was, and then of the lights, and then of icons on a great screen. The most arresting words I've heard about an icon came from a man who said, "An icon is a window into heaven." He was speaking as an Orthodox Christian. There are about 150 million Orthodox Christians, as far apart as Finland and Japan, but mostly in Eastern Europe and the Balkans, Bulgaria, Greece, Romania, Russia. They aren't Catholic, they aren't Protestant. They claim 2,000 years of unfragmented Christianity, a tradition with no breaks in it. And the West, they tell you bleakly, overlooks them. Can you tell me this? I see that when people come in, they also kiss the icon. They kiss the icon.
Yes.
Why is that?
Yes. Oh, it is an ancient custom is to adore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pay respect to it?
Pay respect, yes.
I see.
Pay respect.
Yeah.
No, everybody can so.
Yeah.
And they are a tradition. Pious persons, when they come in the church, they are coming before all the icons and kiss. They sign.
Each icon.
Each icon.
Yes.
Each icon.
Yes.
So.
It's a very personal thing. Very personal kissing is very
personal. Yes. It is a tradition. So.
Is it like to a friend? Comme un ami?
No,
brass?
By a special respect, yes.
Special respect?
Special respect, yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's special, it's not so for friend, you know. It is adoration.
Yeah. Not so many people in Romania speak English, and you do need someone to do the translations. For us, this was Remus Rus, who works for the Patriarch, the head of the Romanian Orthodox Church, was at Oxford, and is an Orthodox Christian.
I think the problem for somebody who's been brought up a Christian is that we know too little and too much about it. I mean, if you tell me about Christianity, I'll say, oh, well, I know it, yet I gather here there are many things, even on a slight encounter, which I wouldn't know.
Remus certainly agreed about things I wouldn't know. A large part of his work seems to be alerting Western visitors to Eastern Christianity.
The relation to images is something you mean I'm going to have to get used to, having been used to bare walls.
Yes, this is in fact what I was suggesting. There is a strong need for you to get accustomed to images.
And not to be hounded by thoughts of idolatry.
No.
The pursuit of the icon took us on a journey of 2,000 miles, north into Moldavia, where Romania meets Russia, west into Transylvania, across the Carpathians to places tourists don't go. If we travelled less, we might have penetrated deeper, but at least, by keeping on the move, we knew that nobody was trying to confine us to some government-sponsored religious ghetto. It was very early in the trip that I asked Remus, what do Orthodox Christians believe? You should ask, he said, whom do Orthodox Christians worship? Because the word orthodoxy, as we use it, means right worship, right praise. If you ask me whom we worship God, who was born a man in a stable in Bethlehem and was called Jesus. We venerate his mother, whom we call the Mother of God. The Christian story unfolds in these simple glass icons. The childhood of Jesus. His baptism in the River Jordan, leading to 3 years of teaching and healing, the years of his ministry. Jesus and his disciples at the Last Supper. The table has no end, you're told, so there's room for all of us. Jesus crucified, his mother waiting. Three days later, the empty tomb, startled soldiers, and a risen Christ. And most mysterious of all, how God sustains his church now. Remus showed me this glass icon as a helpless attempt to draw the mystery of the liturgy, the Eucharist. Christ sits on an altar which is like a tomb. The vine from his wounded side bears fruit which Christ himself presses into the cup.
Words do not suffice. They cannot convey the real meaning of what we feel.
The village of Sibiel in Transylvania. We'd travelled 180 miles west from Bucharest, and, I'd say, at a rough guess, 200 years back in time. Funeral of a young shepherd. He was coming home to CBL with his sheep after months in the hills. He crossed a railway line, was knocked down and killed. He left a wife and 2 children. I asked about the banners. Banners, said one of the villagers, are a sign of victory. The dead man is not hidden away. Before burial, the mourners kiss him. Children too, with a warning that the flesh will be cold. The same village on the Sunday following. The shepherd is 3 days buried, 2 village babies are to be baptized, and the villagers meet in their Sunday best for the weekly celebration of the liturgy, which, for an alien outsider, unfolds like a great, mysterious and involving ritual drama.
The whole liturgy is a dialogue between the priest and the community.
The priest comes from the sanctuary carrying what are called the holy gifts, bread and wine.
România, drept credincioșilor creștini, Domnul Dumnezeu să vă pomenească.
The church is our house. The priest is there to help us bring our offering to God.
Și în vecii vecilor.
The lead up to the consecration of the bread and wine. The sanctuary lies behind a screen with doors, as if to say there are things you can't hear, can't see, can't understand. Definitions stop, and you worship. So in the liturgy, in some mysterious way, heaven is brought down to earth. Watching these men ploughing, I'm trying to work out where this liturgy begins and where it ends, and whether orthodoxy will be the same when village people up and leave for the town. At the other end of the country, Moldavia. I was told that when the Muslim Turks ruled here, Christian bells were forbidden, so Christians beat planks. The drummer is a monk. Moldavia is the land of the great convents and monasteries. I was here for the week before Easter. Two things struck me about Romanian monks and nuns. First, they seem to work just as hard as their farming neighbours. Second, they expect to be visited for a short stay, some personal advice, or a guided tour. When I asked one of the novices how he became a monk, he said his first visit to a monastery was on a school trip with his history teacher.
Este prima scrisorie a lui Ștefan cel Mare, nu a bătăliei la Chilia. Cum ați văzut Moldovița, Sucevița, Voroneță, parcă ați văzut, nu? După moartea lui Ștefan cel Mare, pe aici au trecut și turci, au trecut și tătași, cazați.
This was the Wednesday before Easter.
De fiecare a putut să iasă ceva din biserică.
There are said to be over 2,000 Romanian Orthodox monks and nuns, scattered in well over 100 houses.
get them out of work.
Yes.
Is that special? What are the rugs out for?
But the rugs are out for cleaning.
As far as I'm concerned, this is straight spring cleaning. I mean, I don't see any particular significance, religious significance, about having the carpets on the balcony.
Oh, yes, it is a kind of spring cleaning, but at the same time it is always connected with Easter.
It's got to be finished by Easter.
Must be finished by Monday, Thursday, not later than that. Nobody will clean his or her house after that. That's more or less considered a sin for people in the villages.
So Friday's a day of no work.
Friday
Good
is
Friday is a day
yes,
of no
it's
work.
a day of rest, a day of you prepare yourself spiritually for Easter.
I see. What are the other specific things that somebody would do, particularly for Easter? Clean the house, one thing.
Well, yes, they clean the house, they whitewash the houses, then it's the Easter egg painting, which goes on throughout the country.
Is that universal? Everywhere?
Well, I would say everywhere in the country, yes.
Yes. Has she any idea why that people paint eggs, particularly at Easter?
Puteți să ne spuneți oarecum din ce cauză oamenii pictează ouăle la Paște?
Din ce cauze?
Da. Cam ce motiv?
Păi din cauza că era Iisus Hristos răstignit și în cazul David se face roșie. Chiar direct roșie, așa, numai roșii băgate așa. Dar lumea s-a luat unul după altul ca să se scrie.
When Christ was crucified, she said, one of the women near the cross had a basket of eggs. The blood from Christ's body flowed over them and turned them red. The patterns came later. Has she made her Easter cake, or has she been too busy doing this?
Ați făcut deja plăcinta de Paște? Cozonacul?
Da.
Yes, she's done it.
Already?
Yeah.
All finished? Nothing more to do. We ask, is there any more work to do before
Mai aveți
tomorrow?
ceva să faceți pentru Paște, să pregătiți pentru Paște?
Nu am gătit, azi noapte și mai astăzi.
Well, she's finished last night and today, so she's all set.
And will she stop doing these eggs at the end of today?
Vă opriți astăzi cu pictatul ouălor sau mai faceți și mâine?
Și mâine, că doar mai avem acolo.
She will have to do tomorrow those eggs, just
Finish them off.
finish them off.
I thought people didn't do anything on Good Friday.
Se pare că oamenii de fapt nu prea lucrează în Vinerea Mare.
Nu lucrează.
No, they don't.
Nu lucrează.
One of the things about the West that saddened Remus was what he described as our puritanical resistance to beauty. By beauty, he meant decoration. When he showed me some of the Moldavian churches, painted inside and out like gigantic picture books, I saw what he meant. This was Good Friday.
Yeah, what I was pointing out to you, you've got the Greek philosophers.
Which
Above
one?
all, you've got Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, Sibyl, and an unknown figure who maybe is just...
With a blank sheet.
With a blank sheet, yes.
Sibyl, as far as I know, wasn't a philosopher.
No, she wasn't. She was one of the
Prophetic,
prophetess.
that's right.
Yes.
But the others, Plato, Socrates, how do these men have a right to be on a Christian wall? Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates.
Well, in fact, the orthodoxy has never discarded the ancient thought and thought of it as being leading to Christ through the Old Testament. They themselves are not an Old Testament as some people might think, but they lead through the Old Testament to Christ.
One figure has got what seems like a coffin on the top of his crown. That's
yes,
Plato.
That's
right?
Plato, in fact. Yes.
What's the significance of that?
Well, that's how the painter has imagined Plato thinking about immortality.
Oh, it's a thought. It's like a
yes,
sort of balloon,
like
a
thought,
bubble.
Yes, that's his idea. Yes.
Oh, I see.
That's one of Plato's ideas of immortality.
What's he
yes.
thinking about man?
Well, man is eternal in the sense that he will not die at death.
And is that
he
what's
will
on
go
his,
on,
is that
yes.
what's on his scroll?
After grave, yes. After grave, man's life continues in another form. It's true, a sort of rebirth, a cyclic life.
Saturday, Easter Communion. In the spoon is a morsel of bread and wine consecrated at the liturgy. As the people come up to him, the priest asks each person's name and repeats it. In the Orthodox tradition, a child receives his first communion straight after baptism. From early childhood, he's a full church member. There's something to drink and a piece of bread for everybody straight after communion. Someone there described it as ordinary food after God's food. Sooner or later, talking about orthodoxy, you hear the words theosis, deification, literally becoming God. Not imitating God from afar, but becoming God by adoption. A process through life and beyond death, a movement Godwards. And here's another sermon from this monastery wall. When you're saved in a community. When you fall by yourself. I found myself wondering, if Romania had had an Oliver Cromwell, would he have had these walls scrubbed? Still Saturday. In every church we went to that week, this was happening. Puzzling, till you look at the top of the table. The entombment of Christ. It was as if the people were sharing an entombment in the only way they could.
It is the act of burying yourself with Christ and raising the other side with him. We die with him to raise with him.
The idea of a separate Sunday school for children struck people here as eccentric. If your children aren't with you, how can you teach them? The end of the day. And what if the sun never rose again? The last moments before Easter, a church full of people waited without light. They wait like this every year, with the whole of the Orthodox world. The saints on the walls, and the waiting dead. Easter came in as one frail light, which the priest carried from the sanctuary out to the congregation. From that one source, the light spread and was taken in a great procession round the outside of the church.
It spreads from man to man. You can learn things from a child, from an old man. You can receive light from anybody.
The bangs you can hear are fireworks. This Orthodox encounter, now I look back on it, was full of sermons. Quite a lot of them to do with light, and very few of them in words. 4 hours later, the Easter liturgy was still going on in the church, and outside in the dawn, 200 or 300 women lined up with baskets. They'd brought eggs, rich bread, sugar, bacon, all the things they'd done without for the 40 days before Easter. By blessing these baskets of food, the priest would be blessing each kitchen, each household, and the work of the year. I need a bag. It's the sure sign of the Puritan to start getting worried when he's enjoyed himself. Easter in Romania, quite apart from what it means to a devout believer or what it means to the church as a whole, was just physically enjoyable. But now I wonder, where we're sidetracked. Easter eggs, Easter bread, Easter candles are one thing. Easter meaning is another, and not, I think, confined to Easter. New industry, new housing, old orthodoxy. In the mystifying language of economics, Romania has the highest industrial growth rate in Europe. But nobody was impressed when I told them how England used to be rural and church-going and isn't any longer. Hippodrome, a new suburb of the town of Sibiu in Transylvania. Hippodrome has a priest and a site for a new church, and when it stops raining, the digging detail will go on clearing the ground. I asked them why they needed to build a church.
Suntem numit parohie, dar există parohie fără biserică. Adică preot avem, dar avem biserică pentru dâns.
We are a parish
N-avem
here.
unde să ne adunăm.
We have a priest,
Trebuie
but
să
we
mergem
don't
în
have
alte
a
părți.
place where to meet. So we have to go to all the other churches round about to see for the services.
Who is going to pay for the building of the new church?
Cine plătește pentru noua biserică, pentru construcție?
Noi strângem bani și plătim. Nu numai noi, tot la oaltă.
All of them, all of them.
But does the priest feel that he is being carried on by a wave of popular need, or is he having to beat his drum and get up support?
Ce părere aveți, părinte? Lumea este cu dumneavoastră în curentul ăsta de a construi biserica, sau dumneavoastră sunteți cel care trâmbițați că este nevoie de biserică?
Tot poporul și pe stradă întreabă când începe, părinte, când facem biserica. Poporul nici mai știe ce să mai faci.
Yes, because everywhere where he goes around here, they will ask, well, Father, when we start building the church?
Think of an awful accident where all the priests and all the bishops are taken away. Would Christianity die?
Să ne gândim acum la un accident îngrozitor. Toți preoții, toți episcopii vor dispare. Credeți dumneavoastră că creștinismul are să dispară?
Nu.
Chiar dacă nu există biserică, omul tot are în casă o icoană și o...
While there was one icon in one house, he said, the faith would live.
Se spune că nu numai că e pierdut, dar am zice că sunt ca oi fără păstor. Noi avem un conducător și dacă nu credem în conducătorul nostru, dacă nu mai credem...
Not far from Hippodrome, there's one of Romania's two theological institutes, this one with 900 students. Professors in theological colleges have state salaries. Students have grants from local bishops. Once they're ordained and have a church and a parish, the state will pay a third of their salary. I talked to 3 students from the English class. Which is more important, to be in a church and say the liturgy, or to go around the village and discover who is sick and bring them some medicine?
I think the most things are equally important.
Both things are
Both
important.
equally, of equal importance.
You were not willing to choose one or the other?
No, I think that these things cannot be separated. It is equally important to help the poor and to visit the sick and to serve in the church.
Do you want to reform your church? Any of you?
No.
You're happy?
We just have to keep our line, our traditional line.
Nothing you want to alter?
Well, we have to alter in the conditions of... We cannot...
To revive the spirit, the Christian spirit, but not to reform it, only to revive this Christian spirit, this Christian life. That is, the people should feel all the time the necessity of the church.
So the church renews itself without reformation imposed from outside?
Yes, without any reformation. the Christian Church has this capacity of renewing itself again and again, and it will never die.
How free is a priest to criticize the state that pays his wages? This isn't just a question for today. Orthodoxy has 1,500 years of involvement with government, whoever they happen to be, and it knows about survival. Here are two churches, one old and one bigger and nearly completed. The chairman of the church building committee works as a storekeeper in a cooperative and is a Communist Party member. At a meal here in the priest's house, I asked him what he'd do about his orthodoxy if the state withdrew support.
We don't think this will ever come about.
Unrealistic question.
Este o întrebare fără fundament, nu? Nereală.
Poate de către cineva ar fi crezută reală, dar nu se întâmplă așa ceva.
If you want to believe it's real, as a question,
Nu
yes,
vedem
but
să
it
se
can't
poate
be.
întâmpla. That's all right, just put it as a case.
Asta e numai un caz, o posibilitate.
Fără posibilitate.
But it's a possibility without a possibility.
Without a possibility. But what do I tell the people back home? I sat through that meal with a split mind. I'm sure, if you looked for it, there's a less happy tale to tell about church-state relations during the last 30 years. At the same time, I don't believe that the Romanian government allows the building of new churches here and there just to impress visiting camera teams from the West. I'd like to ask, actually. He's a member of the church building committee, am I right?
Dacă nu greșesc, dumneavoastră sunteți membru al Comitetului pentru construirea bisericii.
Absolut, da. Președinte.
President.
President of the building committee.
And is he also a member of the Communist Party?
Mi se pare că sunteți și membru al Partidului Comunist. Well, everybody knows that.
But I thought communists were atheists.
Însă, din punctul meu de vedere, comuniștii sunt ateiști.
Nu se spune nicăieri treaba asta. Cine crede se botează, cine nu se botează.
I can't translate it, but I know what he's saying.
Nowhere it is said that they should and must be atheists. Those who believe get baptized, and those who don't believe, they don't get baptized.
Does the same go for your two friends?
Sunteți de acord cu ce zice dânsul?
Absolut. Could you imagine that his children might be not interested in the church he'd built?
Vă puteți imagina o situație în care, să zicem așa, copiii dumneavoastră nu mai sunt interesați în biserica pe care ați construit-o. Ce ați simți?
Și acum ce să vă spun? V-am spus de la bun început. Eu îl învăț și el face cum crede.
What I say is this. I teach them, and it is up to them to choose.
Eu cred ce cred eu și el va crede ce cred eu.
Can those people afford to give any money to build a church?
Well, but look at the churches. I mean, there is no comment to make.
There's no coercion or blackmail of any kind in this.
Can you blackmail somebody into a socialist state to give money to the church?
The Department of Religious Affairs in Bucharest had approved our visit to Romania in the first place. It was there I went when the politics became too tangled. The government minister in charge of religious affairs is Mr. Nenciu. Men we saw who were party members and on a church committee and so on. I wondered whether we had just managed to find a slightly eccentric group or whether this was considered a normal way of being a good citizen of this country, to combine what seems contradictory.
De fapt, ne repetăm acum. O întrebare. Noi am întâlnit în decursul călătoriei noastre oameni care sunt membri de partid, dar în același timp ajută și la construirea de biserici. Sunt oare aceștia niște excentrici sau e ceva natural care se combine în armonia constructivă a țării?
Noi considerăm că dânsul a dat răspunsul. A dat răspuns.
You have in fact
prin partea ultima frate.
You have in fact answered the question by saying that this is a part of the harmony, constructive harmony within the country.
Acesta e un fapt.
This is a fact.
The key word, he said, was realism. 80% of the population are Orthodox believers. It would be unrealistic of any government to pretend they aren't there.
So, in as far as our constructive tasks are concerned, we have deep roots in all the social strata of the people.
But the thing they must share is patriotism, am I wrong?
Mi se pare că un lucru ei trebuie să împărtășească în comun. Este patriotismul, nu-i așa?
Fără îndoială, fără îndoială.
I've heard nationalism described as the blight of orthodoxy. In Romania, at least, they seem inseparable. Even the language ties them together. The Romanian word for a Romanian means both a member of the nation and an Orthodox Christian. Cluj, a city with 250,000 people. On the cathedral steps, I found myself thinking not about the 80% of Romanians who go to Orthodox churches, but about the 20% who don't. The group, I gather, that includes most of the teachers, the government officials, and the new managers of industry. It was here in Cluj I first saw the churchman who was to unsettle me more than any other in Romania. I even started to think of him as, in some curious way, my adversary. He was a bishop called Justinian. It's all right when icons stay within the frames, but when they move at you, it's quite worrying. Like all Orthodox bishops, Justinian is unmarried and a monk, whereas priests are encouraged to marry. In the 5 centuries after 300 AD, the Christian bishops met in 7 great councils to hammer out Christian doctrine. The 7 councils, say the Orthodox, define everything in Christianity that needs definition. Then came the split between Orthodox East and Catholic West, and the West went on defining. When the Pope of Rome claimed supremacy over the Christian Church, wrote one famous Orthodox scholar, he became the first Protestant. For Orthodox tradition says, the living icon of the Church as it was founded and meant to be is a bishop among his people.
Va fi pământul grozav fără aceste elemente, fără soare, aer, apă, pădure, munte.
Justinian spent 33 years as a monk in a small monastery in the north of the country. When the former bishop of those parts died, local people petitioned the patriarch and Justinian became their bishop. When we met, he was due in the far north to consecrate a new church. We gave him a lift in our bus. The trouble between Bishop Justinian and me, if you can call it that, was that I asked questions thinking that I knew about Christianity, but had, in some sense, got beyond it, and he treated me as a pre-Christian, a Western pagan, somebody for whom Christianity had yet to happen. He may well have been right. He told me about the Jesus prayer. 9 words. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner. When I said they made Jesus sound tyrannical, he said, when you pray, don't theologize. We became silent. Unless a man needs to speak, he said, it's good to keep silent. The greatest prayer is silent. It prays itself in the heart while the body sleeps. I kept notes of some of the things he said. Here are just 3 of them. You can know all about Jesus and still not know him. The Christians made a great mistake when they turned Jesus into a religion. If we knew the truth of it, every day is Easter.
Hristos a înviat. Bine v-am găsit. Ne-a fost foarte dor să ne întâlnim.
The village of Yeud in northern Transylvania, and the search nears its end. An hour or so to see the bishop bless a new church building, and we'd be off to Bucharest and home. The parish priest apologized for the turnout, but most of the men were at work.
Hristos a înviat.
There are just 2 Romanian phrases you should know as you watch. Christos a înviat, Christ is risen, and the reply, adevărat a înviat, he is risen indeed.
Hristos a înviat. La mulți ani. Bine v-am găsit. Hristos a înviat. La mulți ani. Cum ați putut face față gândirii la toate problemele? Hristos a înviat.
Adevărat că a înviat.
Hristos a înviat. A fost ieri la Romania. Nu, de dați-mi față. Yeah.
When I'm asked what I brought back from Romania, I think about that walk, but I can't say much. I suppose it's my individual, untransferable, interior, unfolding Romanian Orthodox icon.
Este de tot aproape, tot aproape. Nu vă spuneți dialog. Nu ne interesează pe noi ce lucrează ei, are treaba lor.
Sărutați mâna pe Sfinții.
Hristos a înviat.
Sărutați mâna, sărutați mâna pe Sfinții.
Hristos a înviat. Hristos a înviat la noi. Să fie binecuvântat cel micus. Cum te cheamă în ibret? Binecuvântat, mă mănânc. Hristos a înviat. Hristos a înviat. Plătiți Hristos a înviat. Să cred noi. Hristos a înviat. Hristos a înviat. Hristos s-a înviat. La mulți ani. Dumnezeu să vă binecuvânteze pe toți.